Welcome back to AgriTalk. One of the speakers here at the Ag Retailers Association Conference in Palm Springs, California is Curt Covington, Senior Vice President of Credit Administration for Bank of the West Agribusiness, and also an adjunct faculty member of the Department of Agricultural Economics at California State University in Fresno. Curt, thank you for joining us. First of all, if you would kind of give us, for those of us not familiar, that don't follow real closely the situation maybe here in the western part of the country. We know California is a huge agricultural state, obviously, but what is the economic situation here in this part of the country?
Well, I guess if you look at it from a broad perspective, California still struggles a little bit, Mike. It's been a difficult time. Where I come from, in the area of central San Joaquin Valley, Fresno, we have upwards of 20% unemployment in certain areas in rural Fresno County. It's as high as 40%. Some of that's related to this water crisis and water issues that you've probably heard about. As far as the ag economy goes, cautiously optimistic. Obviously, and my bank, Bank of the West, is one of the largest dairy lenders in the United States, and California dairy industry has really struggled, probably more than the rest of the United States, because of the state pool quota system. And I think that the dairy industry is probably still in for a little bit more pain in the first quarter of 2011. The other industries, and as you mentioned, I think we have approximately 200 different crops in California, and I would say probably 80 to 90% of those are probably doing well. Why is that? Good majority of it's exported, cheap dollar, and China is in the market. Canada has been a big buyer of our products. We're optimistic about most of those crops. Having said that, we have certain sectors that continue to struggle, particularly the stone fruit sector, peaches, plums, nectarines. In general, cautiously optimistic about how the ag economy is going to do.
But the water issue is a huge one here, isn't it?
It's a very huge problem. It was interesting because at the ABA conference, I had the president of Whole Foods come speak, and it was interesting to talk to him about that. He living here in California. And he asked me what I thought the most important issue that needs to be fixed in California. The most important issue in California needs to be fixed is turn the water on. We have the resources, we have the dams, we need to build that infrastructure of dams, make some deferred repairs to those dams, but we need to turn the water on. The economy in the Central Valley, which drives the agricultural economy here, has to have water.
And what's the background to that? What is the conflict that goes on out here as far as who gets the water and how it's used? Is that what it's all about?
Well, there's primarily environmental and biological issues on this. This drives back to the Delta Smelt, which a lot of the water for the San Joaquin Valley comes from the Sacramento Valley up and through a channels of canals and ditches. But there's been a lot of biological opinions. The EPA's come out. And a lot of this is simply driven by the fact that we're trying to preserve a species of fish in lieu of trying to preserve the ag economy. And so that's got to change. That absolutely has got to change.
That's something we've heard in other parts of the country as well, and certainly that is a concern. Yeah, it gets back at some point to common sense, doesn't it? And you wonder, where's the common sense in some of these decisions? Well,
you would think common sense would prevail, wouldn't you? I mean, and I'm not just speaking for California, I'm speaking for this nation. California's always turned out to be somewhat of a bellwether state when it comes to issues like this, particularly environmental. And my concern is that when you make these kind of decisions, you got to be somewhat rational. You got to have some kind of common sense. Look, I believe in certain degrees of environmental stewardship. I mean, it makes sense. Every farmer believes it makes sense. But you can't take it to an extreme. And what we've got going on in the state of California is the barbell effect. We have the environmentalists on one side, and we have the farmers on the other side. And they're going to have to come together and meet. And it's going to take our legislature to man up on this issue and get the water to the farmers.
Proposition 2, we've heard so much about that. How is that going as far as trying to actually implement that here?
We know it's a slow process. It's interesting if you talk to many people outside of the state of California, they say, well, that's going to ruin the ag industry in California. And we have seen that there are certain border states that have the ag industry has done a little bit better in view of the fact that they think California's ag industry has probably gone down the road to destruction. But California farmers in general are pretty darn resilient, and they're resilient because they've gone through these issues before. The implementation of it is going to be very, very slow. They're just in the first stages of this. There's been no regulatories and legislative. There's been really no regulation written on this at this point that anybody can come to. And then the question becomes, how do you enforce it? So enforceability is a big issue.
All right, we're talking with Curt Covington, Senior Vice President of Credit Administration for Bank of the West. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, get his thoughts on the economy in general as we look ahead to a new year. Will we see things brighten economically for the country, or we take another big step or a small step out of this recession? We'll talk about that next. This is AgriTalk.